We are Mike and Jeannie, and we restore old houses. In 2021, we moved to South Carolina and bought a 120-year-old Victorian house. Follow along as we put the polish back on this Victorian masterpiece.
Welcome back to 1834 Restoration House. We want to thank you all so much for the heartfelt comments. They mean a lot to us.
We don't know where we're going next or what we're going to do next. It's not the first time that I've been laid off from a job in my 38 years in the career field, but it's kind of exciting to think that it could be something even better than what we had before. And I did put out a lot of applications, and one of them called last night, and it's a very good one, called last night, to make an appointment for a Zoom interview. So I'm looking forward to that coming up next week.
Yes.
We'll see what happens. Given the circumstances that we're under, we now have to put our house into a condition where it would be sellable.
Yes.
And so this room here is probably in the worst condition of all because of the unstripped wood, halfway unstripped, and the wallpaper missing. So I've been doing some experiments, and we worked out something that's going to be quick and easy, I hope. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that now.
Okay.
All right, welcome to the ceiling of the bedroom that's being restored. So you're seeing this kind of an orangey, speckly stuff here. Now, what this is, it's the old wallpaper glue. It's so hard, it's literally become crystallized. And conventional wisdom says that when you want to take off wallpaper glue, you get it wet, you sponge it off, and it's gone. Well, I tried that, and this stuff is so old, it takes a long time to reconstitute, and it just doesn't work very well. So I came up with another solution that works real fast, and that is palm sander, vacuum cleaner to suck up all the dust. Then I'll just go over this area here and I'll show you how quick this is. Well, that was a pretty quick job. Probably took about an hour to do the whole room. And this is the aftermath of it. As you can see, the wall looks a lot cleaner and the wallpaper glue is off of there. It didn't take it all off. There's a few places where it was really stuck fast and hard as a rock. That won't come off, but that's okay. Now, the reason why we did this is simple. The next step involves grinding, and it creates a lot of heat. And I didn't want that heat to melt a wallpaper paste and cause problems with the grinding tool. But what we're going to do is cut down through this paint layer, and we're going to go all the way down to the base plaster. Before we can fix the plaster, we have to get the paint off of here. Like we mentioned, you can't make plaster stick to paint, so we have to get that off. And the only way I've been able to get that done is by grinding it. So this is what has to come off. So let's look at the setup. Makita angle grinder, extra large. And this is a diamond disc grinder. This thing is strong enough to grind through concrete, and it should have no trouble getting through the relatively soft plaster. Now, we bought this dust collector thing. This is a Dustless Technologies device. It's supposed to go on here and allow you to suck up all the dust that comes off the grinder, but it doesn't work, it doesn't fit. It makes it impossible to control the unit. I was having all kinds of problems with it and grinding into places where it wasn't supposed to. The grinding wheel actually contacted the plastic and tore it out. So, not happy with it. Just saying, it was not a good use of our money. So, we're going to go without it, and I'll just use a respirator. I took it off, and then I worked this area here, and as you can see, it's taking off just the thinnest layer. And that's the thing, is just to have fine control, and it'll do exactly what I need it to. Now, let me show you something here. This is pretty cool. If you look at the aggregate, you see that? And you see that? That's actually lime. So that's how we know that this is real lime plaster, because it has pieces of lime that didn't really get mixed up well. There's a little bit of loose stuff falling off from where we worked it, but it's really good. It's also taking out whatever somebody put into this crack here, which ended up re-cracking. So that'll give us a fresh crack that we can work with. Well, things don't always work out the way you plan, and this is a case of that. I took the grinder and I was trying to take off the top coat here and get rid of the paint and everything, and I tried all kinds of different things. I tried going without vacuuming, I tried doing with vacuuming, and it was just impossible either way. So we decided to abandon this and try something different. So what we're going to do is try to encapsulate the existing plaster and put a new coat of plaster over the top of it. So the first thing we're going to do, as always, is clean. The lights went out in this room, only this time we know why. But when you press the switch, which is out here in the hallway, nothing. This old fixture right here has 5 bulbs in it, and they all burned out within about 2 months of each other, one after the other, and finally the other night they just popped off the last bulb. I'm going to go ahead and take one out. And there it is, burned out light bulb. Okay, so we're replacing light bulbs. Big deal, right? But wait. We just received a shipment of brand new Edison reproduction light bulbs. And you say big deal, right? You can get those at Home Depot, right? Well, but you can't get these. These have carbon filaments in them. These are not LED, like the kind you find in the store. Let's turn that on, have a look. That's what a carbon filament light looks like. Edison's commercial light bulb was a carbon filament. These are an exact replica of that, right down to the little tip on the globe. They had carbon filaments, and they put off this incredible warm glow. Now, the carbon filament was used for the first decade or so, and then finally was replaced with the tungsten filament, which we used for decades until they were finally phased out when LED came on the scene. But these are the real deal, exact reproductions. We've been using these lights in our bedroom. These are called horseshoe filaments. They're just one single loop. Those were the 1900 style, which technically is when this house was built, should be the correct light. 10 years later, they had another one which was even better. This is what they call a squirrel cage style. The filament goes up and down, and it winds around in a circle around the entire perimeter of the bulb, giving it a lot more filament area and a lot more light. Here you can see the two side by side, and here they are changed out. These two 1900 bulbs I just took out of here, we've been using these things off and on since 2006. The same bulbs. They've survived several cross-country moves. They've been in different light fixtures, and probably even survived an earthquake or two along the way. They're pretty tough, and they work really well. They're just not very bright. This one has light inside, and that lights up the bowl. Nice. Very classy. Very, very classy. So I was just pondering how old this light fixture is. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but the cordage here, this is cloth covered cord. All right, so we've replaced all of the light bulbs on the first floor, only in the historic part of the house. The kitchen's not getting them, and neither is the bathroom because they really don't need them. But the historic part of the house really, really looks good with these things. And we'll do the upstairs at some other point. We need to take down the garland that we put up at Christmas time. It's now February. I think we were just a little bit late taking this down, but that's okay. That's building up a nice static discharge. If there's any popping in the microphone, I apologize for that. Okay, done.
Today is Plaster Day. First thing we're gonna do is put tape all around the edges of the woodwork so that we don't get plaster all over the wood. It's really hard to get off.
We were looking at the wall just now and we found this. Look at that. That is horsehair. They used to put that in plaster to give it extra strength and flexibility. I'm doing a wipe down just to make sure that all the dust is off of there. Look how beautiful that wood is. I'm doing this so that the tape will stick to it. Well, how do you like our custom racing stripes here? Blue. Probably not a historic look, but that's masking tape that we put on everything. We want to just kind of give an edge so that the plaster work we do doesn't get onto the woodwork. Now, one more thing I want to do before we get started here is just brush down the wall one last time. Just to make sure there's no loose material. I'm hearing a little bit of stuff coming off the wall. That's good, because we don't want that staying on there if it's loose. Plaster won't stick to paint. We saw this in a couple of house tours that we went on before we bought this one, where somebody had just tried to skim coat over a painted surface, and it would delaminate and was literally falling off in sheets. So I'm going to apply what's called a bonding agent. And what that does is it seals up the wall and gives the plaster something to stick to, because this is compatible with masonry, and this is essentially masonry here. So I'm going to go ahead and roll that on first. This stuff is really thin, watery. Well, like I said, it's pretty watery. We're making a little bit of a mess here. This stuff is really hard to apply. It's so thin, nothing happens, and then you push on it and it just starts squirting out all over the place. There's another brand of bonding agent that we were looking for. It lays down a yellow color so you can see where you've been. But we couldn't find it, so we had to use this stuff. Okay, here's the part we've been waiting for all day. We just mixed up a bucket full of plaster, and we wanted to mix it up fairly thin, and so we went on the high end of what the water content was supposed to be. But it does look really kind of soupy. I'm not exactly sure if this is right. We ordered a specific kind of plaster, and when we went to pick it up from the loading dock, the guy back there gave us something different, so your results may vary. Let's get some up here on the trowel. That is really soupy. I'm not going to trust the bag next time because we put in the upper limit of water, and that is not even usable hardly. Let's go ahead and lay some tape into that.
Do you want to put it all the way up?
Not yet. This is the area that we ground out with the grinder. So Jeannie's going to go ahead and bed some tape down in there. Now this is a self-adhesive mesh, and what we've heard in our research is that you can't just stick it to the wall and then mud over it because it'll delaminate. They actually want you to lay down some plaster and then bed the tape into the plaster and then cover over it.
Rats.
Drat. Gravity is extra strong today.
Oh, because I'm trying to hurry.
I know.
I lost it. Oh, here it is.
What we're putting on here, this is called a base coat plaster, and it has a high aggregate content. It actually looks kind of crusty, and that gives it more body, more strength. Okay, ready?
Ready.
All right. Okay. Now I'll go ahead and, oops. It's kind of finicky. This is very similar to doing drywall work where we just bury the tape. Now I'm going to put a line of plaster down here so we can bury that.
Did you finish this part?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Does it look okay?
No.
None of it looks okay.
No, it looks unfinished. It's got my finger
has your fingerprints on it?
Yeah, it still has all my fingerprints
All
there.
right. Oops. Does it look terrible? Absolutely. But this is just the base coat. So is it perfect? No. There's a lot of flaws and imperfections in it, but I went back over it and I worked it with a wet trowel to get all the trowel marks out. It's really frustrating that it just runs right off. The next batch we make will be much different. We started off with a handicap because I asked the plaster yard for a specific product, and the guy who loaded us up gave us something completely different. And it behaves differently than what we expected. And by following the chart of how much water to put into it, we mixed up exactly what they said, except we cut the recipe in half. And we ended up with such a soupy mixture, it wouldn't stay on the trowel. It just kept falling on the floor. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's splatters everywhere. We ended up losing a lot. And then as I was troweling on and trying to get this done, all of a sudden Jeannie said that the plaster was going off in the bucket. And sure enough, all of a sudden it just instantly turned rock hard. I mean, we could not get the stuff out of the bucket, so we had to throw it away. We also noticed that it turned dark gray, and then it turns light gray, and we're kind of thinking maybe over time, over a few hours, it may turn back to white color. But I did have better luck over here. This is the old plaster that all we did was clean, and I put this new plaster on top of it, and it laid on there pretty nicely. So I think it has some potential to do good, but we have a room to finish. So we're gonna let this sit overnight. We'll come back to it and see what happens in the morning. Well, good morning, everybody. It's another day, the day after the plaster debacle. And I talked to the plaster yard that sold me the stuff. Come to find out, they did give me the wrong stuff on accident. Whoever picked it out of the warehouse grabbed the wrong brand. But he said not to worry because it's a compatible unit that should work with our top coat plaster with no problem. So today what we're going to do is we're going to make up some top coat, because really what we were trying to do is fill in where we had ground out and kind of get that back mostly level again. By the way, I just wanted to mention something. You notice I'm wearing a t-shirt here, and I'm doing that because it's warm outside. It's in the mid-60s right now, and after the snow and ice that we've had in recent weeks, this is feeling pretty good. Springs in the air. Following the directions on the bag, we're going to use the proportions that they talk about. Now, the big difference is this particular manufacturer says to put in so much water and hold back so much water and then add in if necessary. The other brand of the plaster we used yesterday, they said just dump it all in and mix it. Well, clearly that didn't work. I've got myself a scale here. I've got a flower pot, and I've got a bucket. Now the scale is digital, and if I put this bucket on top of it, I won't be able to see what it reads. So I'm using this as kind of a spacer. So I'm going to put this on here like so, turn it on, and then I press the tare button, and that zeroes it out. So the weight of all that combined now equals 0. Whatever plaster we put in here from now on will be accurately weighed. All right. Our target today is 12.5 pounds. We have 12.5 pounds here, which is 1/4 of the entire bag. So what we're going to do is take the recommended amount of water and take 1/4 of that. And are you having some trouble there?
Go ahead.
Okay. We have our paddle drill. Which seems to want to fall apart right now.
Sorry.
The directions say, first of all, you put the water in the bucket by itself. And then as you're mixing, you continue to add the plaster, the dry plaster, and mix it up to the proper consistency.
And we have extra water right here in case we need some.
We do. Yeah, so that's what they said, to just hold back some of it and then add it later if you need it.
Okay.
We also have to make a note of the time because we have a little over an hour before this stuff goes off. So we have to make sure that it's either on the wall or out of the bucket and rinsed out by that time. Otherwise, it'll end up in there. Okay, ready?
Ready.
Okay, what's the time? Let's note the time.
1:10.
1:10? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Pour it in there.
Go ahead. Now we just use a paddle mixer.
Keep going.
Go ahead.
You don't have enough in there yet.
No, go ahead. Go, 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 go.
Oh, you just dumped the whole thing.
Well, I guess we're
There's
committed
enough now.
Yeah, it's kind of lumpy, but it's not soaking wet.
Can you get the camera and show them?
Sure.
This is definitely way too lumpy. We need to add water. Definitely need to add more water.
Not too much.
I know.
Easy does it.
Oops, I got some on me.
All right, I think we have some plaster here. And we have quite a bit of water left over. So if we had poured all of that in there, we'd probably have another soupy mess.
Is it going on better?
It's incredible.
What?
It's incredible.
I can't hear you.
It's incredible. It's not
Awesome.
falling off anymore. See? Oops. Well, what do you think?
I hope that's not the final.
No, it's not the final. What you're seeing here, these are the high spots on the wall underneath. And so we basically kind of leveled in the valleys, so to speak, and these are the mountaintops. So
Okay.
if we go back over this again with a second coat, then it'll be perfect. And there won't be any stuff showing
Mountains or
through.
valleys.
Mountains or valleys, right. Yeah.
Okay.
You can see up here it's turning white. Now,
Yeah.
you guys sitting here watching this at home, right now it's gray. But when we put this on, it was white. And then it changes to gray, apparently, and that's kind of the signal that you should be ready to start finish troweling it. Waiting for it to firm up just a bit. It's still a little bit tacky, but I need it to firm up just a little bit. Then I'll come back with a trowel and some water, and I'll rework it, and that'll make everything just lay down perfectly flat. So the goal here is we want a perfectly flat, smooth white wall, and I think we're on the way to doing this. And well, we were just debating over how many more bags we need, and we think we might need two to really finish the room properly.
I think so.
We're just kind of guessing
Yeah.
based on some calculations, but it's hard to tell. Definitely we don't have enough to do it with one bag that we have. But I'm really pleased. It went on smooth. Remember now, this is a different plaster than what we used yesterday.
Yes.
This is a top coat. So we don't really need a base coat in here, so we're just putting that on to cover up over the old plaster, which has a bonding agent.
Yes. And the bonding agent, once you put it on, it says you can do it anytime within the next 7 days. Because after that, it's not so adhesive.
Right. Yeah, really what it does is it seals the wall and provides a surface, gives us some tooth that the plaster can grip onto. And if you remember, the wall was really crumbly before. It had a lot of debris that kept falling off every time we touched it. Well, if I come over here now, it doesn't do that anymore. And that's because of the bonding agent that basically locked that wall together. This is a section of wall that I did yesterday using base coat. I applied it super thin just to see what would happen. And it basically looks like this. But I went over it just now with top coat, and it's in the process of drying. And actually it's starting to look pretty good. This is the section that I did yesterday. So this was the base coat that was really soupy, and I put that on here and it was really wet. Now you can see that there's some white areas and there's dark gray areas. And the reason is that this area here is still curing. These out here have more or less cured. Why is that different? And why do we have islands here that looks like a world map? Very simple. The areas like this, these are areas where the grinder didn't remove this top coat. But down here, we ended up getting down into the base plaster, which is an old lime plaster with horsehair. And what happens is all that moisture that I put on there gets sucked into the lime plaster and then very slowly gets released back out over time as the plaster cures. So hopefully, in a week, that all this moisture will have evaporated out of here and the whole thing will turn into white color. Okay, now that the plaster has sat for a while and had a chance to rest, it's starting to go off and firm up a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is go back over it with a trowel that has a rounded edge, which doesn't catch the edge so much. It's called a pool float, works great. I have my spray bottle, and this is going to act as a little bit of a lubricant to allow the float to pass over. So I'm just going to spray the float, get it nice and wet, and then just start working it down. The goal here is to start getting the trowel marks out of it. So just use a little bit of water. See if we can't get that to smooth out a little bit better. This is a lot like concrete finishing. And we're bringing the cream up to the top. Oops. Just smooth it out. The reason why this is so important is that inevitably you're going to have some trowel marks and some skipping when it first goes down. And what this does is it smooths that out, makes the surface smoother, so that when you go back and lay on another coat, it in turn will be much smoother. So technique-wise here, I'm using the edge of the trowel. I'm not laying it flat. I'm just kind of dragging one edge through like that. Nice and easy. Always keeping the surface moist. I'm not soaking it. I'm just giving it a spritz. It is definitely pulling the plaster smooth. I'm not sure if you can see that, but the trowel marks from before, they're virtually disappearing.
glad we finally got some plaster on the walls. We're getting there. It'll be great when it's done. For now, we'll keep on working on it. Thank you for watching 1834 Restoration House.